Hey everybody, this is Perch, and I know why. Okay, we all know why you want this one. So, taking a look at Aquaman. Yes, Aquaman from DC Rebirth. This was June 2016. We had Aquaman Rebirth #1, and then that was followed in that same month, June 2016, with Aquaman #1. Really, we had two creators here. We had Dan Abnett, and then we had Kelly Sue DeConnick, who did take over kind of both parts of the run. And so we're going to take a look at the numbers, but I suspect I know why you guys want me to do this one, and it has a little something to do with this clip.
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, let's take a look at what we got here. So this is Aquaman in all of its glory from June 2016 through November 2020, when the title came to an end. And it's after the thrill and glory and cigarettes that I smoked after looking at The Walking Dead and its powerful upward rise to glory. It is back to normal. So we see this title and kind of its descent, and we'll talk about that bump there in the middle. But basically, we have Rebirth, and then we have a pretty strong 42 issue run. I use the word strong in quotes with one annual of Dan Abnett, and then a second part from issue 43 to 65. So let's take a look at what we've got. So let's just walk through the numbers. Here is Aquaman Rebirth. It started at 68,000 for this Rebirth issue. And then Aquaman #1, which did have some variances of other things going on, it peaked up to 77,000. And it's always awesome. You have an Aquaman title selling 77,000 copies in 2016. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. So as we look in, let's go to issue number 7 here. That's 47,000. And that's after its first arc is kind of done. What you will notice in these early issues of Aquaman, and probably why you saw not quite the steep immediate drop-off, is that you had heavily involvement with the Justice League. They made a point in these early runs to have Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman, all these other characters interacting with Aquaman, because that makes sense, right? It makes sense that you would want to do that because it would cement the character in with continuity. This reminds me a little bit of Captain Marvel, and the fact that Captain Marvel, during her run as Miss Marvel under Brian Reed, was heavily cemented inside the Marvel Universe. You'd see her interacting with Iron Man and with Captain America and with other things because that made sense, because they wanted to have the character involved in all this. But as the series went on, we had less. So by the time you get to certainly, issue 27 or so, the title is down in the 20,000s. It's 26,000, 28,000. We get a lot of Aquaman, fighting various fish-based monsters. I'm not counting the annuals in here, by the way. The two annuals, Annual 1 and Annual 2, both were a steep decline, but they always are. So it's not fair to go into these are a low point. If we were counting the annuals, the low point of Dan Abnett's run would be the annual. But by issue 36 there, we're at 23,000. That would kind of be his low point, not counting the annual. And then we started in with this storyline around Drowned Earth, which once again brought the Justice League and other characters back into the picture, and that's where you see this bump back up. Dan Abnett ends his run at 39,180, and that's it's a fall. Okay, and then we get to the start of Kelly Sue DeConnick's run, which her first issue of her run was 32,000. You have a brand new creative team, a brand new part 1, and as you'll see, this title launched during the movie. This is December of 2018 when actually the movie was out, and they took pains to make Aquaman in the comic look like Aquaman in the movie with some tats and other things. And so you even see that little ad for Aquaman on the cover. But this was a case where you bring in a brand new creative team, and the title actually goes down from the issue before it. You go from 39,000 down to 32,000 with the announcement of the new creative team. And her run then very, very rapidly gets right back down to that 23,000 mark within about 7 issues. It's down there again. And then it continues to kind of fall. We have a brief blip up for Year of the Villain. Now remember, there was some variance and other things going on, which kind of falsely inflated that number. But her bump up was 24,000. And then we are down in 16,908 by the time we're at issue 59. And then finally we settle in at just over 15,800 for our final issue. So not good. Basically, we're down. There's a brief moment in issue 64, the second to last issue, where we were under 15,000 at 14,956. So here's what our trend looks like. A nice healthy trend with one bump in the middle. And that's really due to this Drown Earth storyline, which tied into the Justice League. I think there was a crossover between the two, so people were buying Justice League, were buying Aquaman, and so it all makes sense that ultimately happened. But here you go. So if we are looking at a trend, we go from 68,000 kind of at the beginning of our trend down to 14,500 at the end of our trend, and basically this says over the course of this whole series, 79% drop. Okay, but let's space it out. Here is when Dan Abnett started his run, and here's when Kelly Sue DeConnick took over. You can see that on the screen right now. And basically, we'll take a look in isolation. Dan Abnett's run went from 68,000, ended up at 34,000 at the trend, with a low point there of 23,000. And that means that his trend was basically a 50% drop, which is definitely higher than most. Most people at DC, most books were, I think this is 2017, 2018, they were ranging around 30 to 35%. So this dropped faster. Now you might say has a lot to do with Aquaman. You might also argue that this title launched stronger than it reasonably should have. Again, if you look at these first issues, it's not a simple job. If we just take out the first issue, we don't actually change the trend that much, because issue 2 and issue 3 and issue 4 kind of hung in there for a while. It was heavily tied in with the Justice League, so that makes sense. But anyway, that's his run. Now let's take a look at Kelly Sue DeConnick's run. She starts off a trend at 34,000, and then she gets down to 14,500. And basically, her run had a trend drop of 57%. So close to Dan Abnett. It was not a free-for-all, but it was a higher. She had a faster, and I mean higher in a bad way, she had a faster drop than Abnett in terms of percentage, but she was also starting from much lower as well. So be that as it may. This is kind of a continuing trend, by the way. So if we look at the two together, Dan Abnett, he basically had 44 issues running from June 2016 to November 2018. His average sales, if you just average up all his comics, his average sales were, by issue, 35,839. He had a high point of 77, a low point of 23,000, and he had this 50% drop. Now, Kelly Sue DeConnick had 23 total issues, so just under 24, running from November 2018 to November 2020, 2 years. Her average sales were 20,000. So Abnett's was 35,839. Hers were 20,960. So pretty significantly lower than what Abnett was doing. Her high point was 32,000, so the best she got, and that was her first issue, and her low point 14,956, 57%. So what's interesting about this is there's a lot of articles written about how Kelly Sue DeConnick's legendary run was coming to an end. And I'm like, what do you mean by legendary? Do we mean by story development? Do we mean by, critical acclaim? Do we mean by sales? What do you mean by legendary? But in this case, legendary means average sales of 20,000 issues. So it is interesting that if you look at Aquaman, I do have some numbers pre Dan Abnett, both when Jeff Johns is doing it, a few other people are on the title. And Kelly Sue DeConnick's run is definitely the weakest of the last decade or more, for sure, no question about it. It's weird because she also had the lowest sales of Captain Marvel. Brian Reed, Kelly Thompson, they did better. So it's curious why Kelly Sue DeConnick is considered a premier writer you want to bring on anything. I mean, no shade. I mean, well, this is why you guys wanted me to do the video. I'm quite sure of it. But I'm still looking for the title. I'll put it that way. I'm looking for that book that's going to show the massive sales that indicate why publishers are like, yep, this is the person that's gonna pull us out. Like, I don't know. It's weird. Maybe Bitch Planet is the one that will do it. I just got to get into those sales, and they're huge. Anyway, here's Aquaman, the movie. It did come out the same month that Kelly Sue took over the book. And it basically, as I mentioned before, there was an effort to kind of make the character look a little bit like Jason Momoa, and so they did that. Aquaman, of course, the movie starring Jason Momoa and Amber Heard. And hang on a second. Wait a minute. you know, if we put glasses on Amber Heard here, all right, confirmed. Amber Heard is Kelly Sue DeConnick's daughter. I think that's what we've also learned here. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, here is overall. There you go. There's Aquaman. The funny thing about all this was any of this a surprise to you? Not me. I mean, you could, I think you could have kind of predicted this one. Whether or not people didn't go to the book because they didn't really care about Aquaman, I don't know. Or because they heard Kelly Sue say, if you don't like my politics, don't buy the book. And they were like, yes, ma'am, we will do that. Or whether, you know, or who knows why. It is worth noting that Aquaman, unlike under Kelly Sue, unlike Dan Abnett, made a point to steer away from the rest of the DC universe. They weren't tying in the other characters. Dan Abnett heavily leveraged the Justice League through his run at various points. Kelly Sue did not, and can't help but think that maybe part of the lesson here, independent of Abnett or DeConnick, is that Aquaman as a character is not strong enough to stand on his own 2 feet all by himself, and you need to do things to, you know, bring him into the DC universe to actually make the character feel important, much like Captain Marvel. And once you've accomplished that, and the character has been built up, then you can go off on your solo adventures. But you know, when you send Aquaman off, you know, with amnesia onto a desert island with a bunch of random gods, and you try and introduce a new mythology, well, I think Kelly Sue said part of her goal was to address the Atlantean monarchy and dismantle that system, because in 2020, the monarchy was problematic. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, call me crazy. I just there's an audience for that. Just, well, I mean, this is the audience for it. You're looking at it. It's you know, it's under 20,000. That's your audience. So anyway, there you have it. Aquaman sales. Exciting. This, I'm not nearly as excited as I was with that Walking Dead. I'm just going to go back and watch that Walking Dead video again, grab a cigarette, and that's what I'm off to. What questions do you have? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. If you want to get in touch with me, hey, everything is in the description to the video. Reach on out. Happy to hear from you. And maybe, just maybe, I'll get caught up on my email and actually answer some of this stuff. But most importantly, thanks for listening.
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved.